Hi, Melissa Bell, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Chris Anderson. He is a General Counsel and HR Lead at Rayburn Electric Cooperative. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Melissa.
So we talked a while back, and I know we're going to get in a little bit, for people who did not hear that episode. I want to talk a little bit about your background first, but we're also going to dive into Rayburn, its growth that has been phenomenal over the past couple of years. And I just want to hear a little bit more about your background. So do you mind sharing a little bit about how you got started and your path in the industry?
Sure. So I'm currently General Counsel and HR Lead, as you indicated, at Rayburn Electric Cooperative. And so we're here based north and east of Dallas, Texas. I actually came here, was recruited for this position after leaving my job as an associate general counsel, retiring at an investor-owned utility in northern Minnesota. So I always joked that after Winter Storm Uri, one of the things that Rayburn did was they bolstered their experience with people who know about cold weather operations and know how to navigate the cold weather systems in the world. But I was there for 27 years, retired, briefly went to a mining company in northern Minnesota, and then was recruited to this position here, and I had not been to Dallas area prior to my interview and employment, and I've really enjoyed my time here. A great group of people that I get to work with, and Dallas and Texas in general is a pretty friendly state, even to a northern guy.
That's amazing. And for many people who are just hearing the name Rayburn for the first time, how would you describe the company and, what and the role it's played in Texas?
Sure. So Rayburn Electric Cooperative is a member-owned generation and transmission utility. So if you think about it, we have 4 members. They serve over 650,000 Texas, north and east of Dallas. Rayburn's position and role is to serve those 4 member cooperatives with the energy supply that they need to meet the growing demands that they have, because this area of North Texas has grown by leaps and bounds, and that growth of residential primarily has fueled our growth as a company. And so it's all interrelated. And Rayburn's role is to make sure that we work with our 4 member cooperatives and plan out the system to meet the energy needs that they're facing, both from a transmission standpoint, but then also acquiring the necessary generation, whether we own that generation or whether we purchase that energy in the Texas wholesale market, which is referred to as ERCOT. That's what Rayburn's role is, to make sure we deliver reliable and as low cost as possible energy for those 4 members, because they're of their role of serving really the residents that they're feeling right now. The bulk of our system is residential customers, but as we may get into it, I don't think you can have a podcast talking about the energy industry nowadays without talking about the role that data centers might play in system planning and the impacts that they may have on companies like ours.
Oh, definitely. And I know most people do know what a cooperative is, but you have your FPLs and we have a cooperative as well in our area. And, for cooperatives, is it mainly rural areas that are really benefiting the most, or can it be, non-rural areas?
Well, if you let me give you a little history lesson, we're named after Sam Rayburn, who was the Speaker of the House during the New Deal, the administration of Franklin Roosevelt, when the investor-owned utilities, as you just identified, really concentrated on serving the populated areas of each part of our country. And rural Americans were really left out of the electrification of our nation. And Sam Rayburn, President Roosevelt, and others were part of the movement to start the Rural Electrification Association, which really spawned the co-op movement, which was rural Americans banding together, putting up dollars and building the system to serve them farms and rural places. The irony now is we become now some of the more fastest growing urbanized areas. So the electric cooperatives have really had to learn how to transition from maybe being sleepy and slow growing to now not only facing a residential housing boom, but then, as we talked again, just previously, the data center boom. Where's the land and the water and some of the space available for some of these larger loads, or even commercialization. And so, whereas right now Rayburn is over 90% serving ultimately residential customers through its 4 cooperative members, we're really going to see our industrial and commercial side of our business grow. And part of our job over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years is managing a different type of load on our system and that energy growth and those energy demands that a changing profile in rural America is facing.
And with that growth, I know Rayburn is growing fast, and you went from 20 employees to about 100 in just is that a year's
Yeah.
time?
So I was number 60 something when I started 3 years ago, and we're about 110 right now. And while we've really kind of maybe gone through what we call our teenage growth spurt in terms of hiring, we are now hiring more strategically. And part of our movement now is to how do we hire smart and innovative and make sure that we have a good employee mix that can meet the demands of the changing energy industry that used to be sleepy and quiet and did things the old-fashioned way all the time because that's the way everyone always did it. And as our CEO says, status quo is not company policy. And Rayburn really tries to live that value of being innovative and dynamic. We have a unique structure within our company. We don't have silos. It's a very flat organization. We like to encourage, maybe don't take it too far as an employee, but better to ask for forgiveness than to sit around waiting for permission to do something. So we try to keep fast moving, fast paced, and really try to make sure that we're ahead of the curve in our industry.
Makes sense to people who actually take and that's helping to spark that expansion that you're feeling too. I'm
Correct.
assuming.
Absolutely.
And with rapid growth, it's exciting. And, along with that comes the company's culture. Rayburn has scaled. And what are some of the values that you've worked to kind of keep, even though it's scaling, the things that you want to keep as the company?
Yeah. So while status quo is not company policy, our job as leaders of the organization is to make sure that there are certain values, core values that continue from the time that we were 20 employees, as you indicated, but also how do we change and become more dynamic as we face the demands of not only meeting the needs externally, but internally. We really invest heavily in our employee base. We really do a good job of trying to make sure that people have opportunities to educate themselves. We encourage education certifications. We will pay for someone to get a degree. We don't require them to stay here. They're not required to pay it back. We want them to be good, growing, learning employees so that they benefit Rayburn. And Rayburn helps meet the needs of its member cooperatives.
And I know Rayburn has earned a consecutive top workplace honors, and that was in the Dallas Morning News. I mean, from your perspective, what has it taken to kind of achieve this and to keep this type of momentum inside your workforce?
I think it's a strong company culture, from our CEO on down. I think we have a good leadership group and we have a good employee base. We've worked really hard to try to attract and retain good employees. We have core values that we live by: respect, integrity, excellence, and innovation. And I think when really all of our decision making and all of our strategy really rests around those four core values. And I think when we communicate that to our employee base, they understand, they see those values being lived in action, and it gives them a little bit more of a sense of purpose and an understanding of the framework by how we want to operate our business. So when you talk about that culture question, it's really making sure that those four core values really permeate the organization and really are the touchstone for how people look at how they do their work and how we treat our employees. And I think we've been recognized then, our employees understand our care for them. They understand our respect for them. And I think when you show an employee base respect and you give them the freedom to do their jobs, I think, you get the feedback that we've received in some of the accolades. And, we're going to change over time as we grow, as I said, from our awkward teenage years into our, what kind of company do we want to be when we grow up? We want to be a preeminent generation and transmission utility in the nation. And I think we are charting our strategic path now going forward. What does that vision look like, and how do we get there? And I think it's really an exciting time, not only to be in the energy industry, but really to be at Rayburn.
And for the future, what are some things that you're kind of, as far as expansion wise, I know it's not going to be like, in what type of ways are you looking to kind of just change, expand your footprint in other ways besides just like growth of employees?
Well, our growth of our footprint really is how do we meet the energy needs of our growing four-member cooperatives. So when we talk about data centers, where maybe we may double or triple the size of our service to them, by just one, two, or three data centers coming and locating within our service territory. There's the unique issues now, the lessons learned from a winter storm Uri, where really you need to think about risk. What are the operating parameters of risk for your organization, and how do you address those risks? So we're really looking at, along with other companies, not only in Texas, but nationwide, how do you make your energy grid more resilient? How do we make sure that a future weather event like Winter Storm Uri doesn't impact the system the way that it did, 3 years ago, and to the great detriment not only of the system, but people lost their lives. The shutdown of the energy grid had a significant impact on Texans, and they remember that. And there's been a lot of changes now in state energy policy to help address what were some of the problems that led to some of those, horrific consequences. And so there's changes on the regulatory front, there's changes on the policy front. And what Rayburn is really attempting to do now is, what do we do to think about those risks differently? We've hired folks that work more on our energy planning side. So as we look at energy forecasting, and the group that looks at the energy needs going forward, how do we acquire marketplace energy, or how do we build generation? How do we invest in our transmission system and make it more resilient, where before maybe we had radial lines that just went straight out from one location to another? How do you loop those now so that there's some system redundancy if there's a storm, whether it's a winter storm or a summer storm, takes out one of those lines? What do we do to trim trees and do vegetation management? What do we do to make sure that our poles and wires are as structurally strong and resilient as they can be, whether it's a weather event or just the aging of the system? So there's a really long laundry list of things that you can do as an energy company. And we get the benefit of, as Rayburn being, essentially self-regulated. We're not rate regulated by the Public Utilities Commission in Texas. So our four-member co-ops really help set the course for what are our energy objectives, and what do we need to do to invest in our system, because we're not for profit. We're here just to make the system stronger, and we don't do it to make money for investors. We do it to make the system stronger for the people that we serve, who ultimately are our member owners.
And now for the future, we're talking about just energy in general. Are there any things that you think we're going to see more of? I know everyone talks about AI, is AI, not just besides providing it for, data centers, but is AI going to be any part of the energy, as far as like playing a role in energy, and as far as these plants and these different places?
Yeah, so let's take the data center side of things away from the equation, and the AI impact of just those large energy users locating in our service territory. We are really embracing AI as a company. We really see it as a valuable tool to help our employees do their jobs better and more efficiently. And one of the things that we've been very conscious of as we start our AI rollout is, everyone talks about, oh, it's going to take jobs, you're going to lose your job to AI. We're looking at AI as a supplement to the human being. We have good humans that work here already. AI is going to be a tool that helps them do their jobs better, more efficiently, and allows them to grow maybe in directions that, in 5 or 10 years, they can't even fathom right now how they may be doing their job differently. And they may be doing it in ways that will be able to utilize the accelerator that AI is, and really harness that through the humans that we have here in our company.
That makes sense. And I mean, today's workforce, now yours spans like several generations, and to keep that kind of momentum, like you were saying, do you do a lot of internal, as far as like moving up the ladder and just, maybe changing roles? Do you find a lot of your employees actually stay within the company for a while, and maybe even their kids?
Well, we're a young company right now. Our longest tenured employee is about 20 years, but it quickly drops off. That the bulk of our employee base is probably a 3 to 5 year time period here at Rayburn. And when I say to 3 to 5 years, I would say that the bulk of those are on the lower end of that continuum, not on the higher end. So we've got a lot of new folks here, and a lot of folks that have not been here for very long. And there's a benefit to that I think is they have new ideas, and we've really concentrated as a strategy group and HR lead and from our executive team too, to really talk about the generations in the workforce that you touched upon, the value that it has to have the different perspectives. And, it's always fascinating when a trainer comes through and gives a lecture and they'll say, well, the problem with the younger generation is, A, B, C. And they'll say, well, just so you know that was a statement made by someone in 1959 about the generation behind them. You start to realize that some of these same things have been said repeatedly by each generation as it climbs the ladder about the generations that come behind it. And as we help inform our workforce about the positives and the benefits of the generations in transition, that really does help, as you indicated, teams that we form and workforce dynamics, that maybe we spend more time really learning about our employees. We do some personality tests and other things, and we find ways to find complementary dynamic differences that really help accelerate how Rayburn thinks about things. So we don't have groupthink, and we don't have only type A's or only people that think about things a certain way. We see the value in diversity of background, diversity of education, diversity of thought, and I think that's really one of the secrets to Rayburn's success to this point has been the openness to utilize some of those differences and capitalize on it.
Those new ideas, that makes sense, being more, because you have the younger generations, and they have ideas and things and fresh perspectives that sometimes you don't think about, and that's always, I find that even in my own job, sometimes you have someone come along and you're like, I didn't think about it that way. And that adds that fresh, kind of blood to the situation.
Well, and then it's incumbent too on those of us who are older, like me, or longer tenured employees, to go, to accept some of those different thoughts and to really force ourselves to think differently about how do we react when those ideas come forward. So it's not just the encouragement of being forthcoming with your idea and being innovative. It's also training employees to communicate in a different way and to be more open to listening to something that they may not want to hear, and to be more open to hearing about someone else's idea and how maybe something can be improved, even if it might have been tried 15 or 20 years ago. Guess what? That was 15 or 20 years ago, and there's a whole different dynamic going on now. It may work. It's also, good. One of the things we really thought about doing through our innovation work is an idea may be generated right now, but it may not be the right time for it. But that doesn't mean that idea goes away or gets erased. It sits on the sideline, and you think about it, and you may bring it back up after a year or two or three, and maybe there's a lot more attributes to it that can make sense in a different time frame.
And now cooperatives as a whole, energy and other fields, do you think that's going to continue to grow? I think we're going to see more and more build out in rural communities. I'm seeing it here locally. So
absolutely. I think change and differences in technology are going to come to cooperatives, and what we've seen from some of our national conferences and regional conferences is there's a leadership group that's ready for that change to come. And so I think, historically, when you think of the electric utility industry as a whole, whether it's investor owned or cooperatives, there's a lot of long tenured employees, as you indicated in one of your earlier questions. And I think we're starting to see that generational change. And I think the cooperatives are really well positioned to look at doing things new ways and different ways, and really becoming the forefront for the changes in technology that are bringing to rural America. And I think that's what makes it an exciting time to be in this position, and what it makes it an exciting time to be in the energy industry to begin with.
And now, if people wanted more information on Rayburn, where would they go? The website?
Yeah, RayburnElectric.com is our Rayburn.com is our website. When you go there, you'll see a lot of really good information about our company, about things that we're doing. Our communications team has done a fabulous job. We're on social media. It's pretty hard to miss us on social media now. We've invested in that for a reason, because we have a good story to tell. And also, any one of those of us that are identified on the website that anyone wants to reach out to through LinkedIn or other resources, we're always available to talk. We love to tell our story. We love to hear people's ideas. When you talk about data centers coming into our area, rather than see that through the lens of opposition, we see that through the lens of opportunity. So we're always willing to talk to people about new ideas and new ways to do things.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you joining us again. It was a pleasure having you on the show because it's been a while. I was going to say it's been probably almost 9 months, but wonderful to see just how much is, going on with Rayburn and the growth.
We'll check in again in another year, and we'll let you know where we're at.
Hope sooner than that. We got to do it sooner than that.
All right. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for joining the Business Roundup, where we always try to bring you interviews with some of the leading people in business, whether it be technology, finance, or energy. I hope you tune in. I hope you subscribe and listen, and we'll give you updates for new interviews that are coming up. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bell.